Hey guys! So in 2013, the largest manhunt in US history took place in California. Over 2,000 police officers were involved in the search for one single suspect. However, despite the fact that the wanted man was alone, he openly declared war on the entire Los Angeles police force, and every police officer was frightened by the possibility of a confrontation with him. As for ordinary Americans, despite the fact that he was a wanted criminal, many of them saw him as a hero. In 2001, Christopher Dorner graduated from the university with a degree in political science and psychology, after which he went on to serve in the Navy. After a year of service, Christopher was put in command of a security unit at the Naval Air Station Fallon in Nevada. Then he served with a mobile inshore undersea warfare unit. During his service in the Army, Christopher received excellent combat training. He mastered many types of firearms, many methods of survival in combat conditions, and also the techniques of hand-to-hand combat. He was so good at these disciplines that he even received a ribbon for marksmanship, as well as a ribbon for shooting with a pistol. In 2005, Christopher entered the Los Angeles Police Academy. He graduated from it a year later and joined the service. But then he was deployed by the Navy Reserve to conduct a military operation in Afghanistan. He spent 13 months there, after which he came back to the police force. His service in the police force began with the probationary training under the guidance of a more experienced partner, Sergeant Teresa Evans. On July 28, 2007, Christopher Dorner and Teresa Evans responded to a call at one of the local hotels. The call was regarding a disturbance being caused by a man who came into the hotel and was causing problems for the staff and the guests. The police quickly disabled the man, who turned out to be Christopher Gettler. The man had mental problems, so the police didn't take him to the station, but simply took him out of the hotel and issued a warning, saying that next time he'd end up behind bars. It would seem that the incident was over, but it would actually end up playing an important role in Dorner's life, because the next day Christopher filed a report alleging that Officer Teresa Evans used excessive force in her treatment of Gettler. Dorner claimed that Evans twice kicked Gettler in the face when the man was already lying on the ground, handcuffed, and thus no longer posed a threat to anyone. 2 weeks later, Christopher's mentor, Officer Teresa Evans, gave the management her report on his training. The report stated that he wasn't ready for service and he needed to improve his performance in several areas. An internal investigation into Officer Evans was initiated on Christopher's allegations. The review board heard testimony from a number of witnesses. Christopher Gettler's father said that when his son returned home on the day of the incident, his face was swollen, and the man told his father that he was hit by a police officer. They didn't report it at the time because the injuries were minor, and the man couldn't clearly explain why he was kicked. Later, Gettler began to get confused in his own testimony. He had schizophrenia, so the review board didn't see him as a reliable witness. As for other witnesses, 3 hotel employees stated they didn't see any of the police officers kick the man during the arrest. However, there could be no compromise in this case. There were only 2 possible outcomes. The review board could either conclude that Teresa Evans did kick the already detained suspect, which would cause a backlash in the media, or they could conclude that she was innocent, which would mean that Christopher Dorner lied in his report. Eventually, the review board concluded that Dorner's report wasn't credible and was probably motivated by the fear that his training officer, Teresa Evans, would give him a bad report, which could end his career in the police force. On September 4th, 2008, 8 months after filing the report, Christopher Dorner was fired from the LAPD. However, Christopher didn't stop at that. He filed appeals with the Los Angeles County Superior Court and California Court of Appeal, but each time the previous ruling was affirmed. The story was widely covered by the media. After his wife divorced him, he fell into a deep depression. Later, he wanted to return to the Army, but despite his previous merits, he wasn't allowed back. On the evening of February 3, 2013, in the town of Irvine, California, the bodies of a young couple, 28-year-old Monica Kwan and 27-year-old Keith Lawrence, were found. They were both found dead in the parking lot near their home. Monica was the daughter of Randall Kwan, the former local police captain and now lawyer. Her fiancé, Keith Lawrence, was a public safety officer. Everything was done very professionally. The killer didn't leave any evidence, and the most logical theory was that the murder was an act of revenge on Monica's father by one of the local gangs for his police past. However, the very next day, a document was posted online which revealed the truth. It was an open letter, Christopher Dorner's manifesto to the American people. It was over 11,000 words. Here are some excerpts. I know most of you who personally know me are in disbelief to hear the media reports about me. You are saying to yourself that this is completely out of character of the man you knew. Unfortunately, this is a necessary evil that I do not enjoy, but must partake and complete for substantial change to occur within the LAPD. The question is, what would you do to clear your name? A name is more than just a noun, verb, or adjective. It's your life, your legacy, your journey, sacrifices, and everything you've worked hard for every day of your life as an adolescent, young adult, and adult. Don't let anybody tarnish it when you know you've lived up to your own set of ethics and personal ethos. On July 8, 2007, I reported Officer Teresa Evans for kicking a suspect. While cuffing the suspect, she kicked him twice in the chest and once in the face. The kick to the face left a visible injury on the left cheek. It's awful when an officer kicks a mentally ill person. Unfortunately, after reporting it to supervisors, nothing was done. I had broken their supposed blue line and was relieved of duty by the LAPD. It is clear as day that the department retaliated toward me for my report. During the hearing, a video was played for the panel where Gettler stated that he was indeed kicked by a female officer, and his father also confirmed it. But they still found me guilty and terminated me. During the hearing, the department attempted to label me unsuccessfully as a bully. Journalists, I want you to investigate every location I resided in growing up. Find any incidents where I was ever accused of being a bully. You won't, because it doesn't exist. The LAPD has suppressed the truth, and it has now led to deadly consequences. Your day has come. Luckily, I don't have to live every day like most of you. Self-preservation is no longer important to me. I do not fear death as I died long ago. The attacks will stop when the department states the truth about my innocence publicly. I want my name back, period. There is no negotiation. I know your techniques, tactics, and procedures. I have nothing to lose. You cannot prevail against an enemy combatant who has no fear of death. You are aware that I have always been the top shot. I am a son. I am a brother. I am a military service member. I am a man who has lost complete faith in the system, when the system betrayed, slandered, and libeled me. I lived a good life, and though not a religious man, I always stuck to my own personal code of ethics. I didn't need the U.S. Navy to instill honor, courage, and commitment in me. It's in my DNA. His first victim was the daughter of Randall Kwan, the lawyer who represented him during the hearing, because Dorner believed that Kwan was in on it and deliberately lost his case. At that moment, two big hunts began at once: the hunt of Christopher Dorner and the LAPD hunt for Christopher Dorner. Unsurprisingly, immediately after he published his manifesto, he became the most discussed person in the United States. Over 2,000 police officers were assigned to protect the homes of his supposed targets, as well as to capture him. However, the problem was that most of the patrol officers had never encountered such a dangerous suspect as Christopher Dorner during their service. He had combat experience and knew all the methods that the police used. It made sense that many officers were scared of confronting him, so much so that even at the slightest suspicion of his whereabouts, they opened fire to kill. This led to the fact that several civilians were injured during the hunt for Dorner. Thus, on the morning of February 7th, near the house of one of Dorner's suspected targets, the police fired over 50 shots at a blue Toyota. According to the police, The car matched the description of Dorner's vehicle, but instead, 71-year-old Emma Hernandez and her daughter were in the car. Both women miraculously survived, although they received some injuries. Later, the police stated that the car was driving with its headlights off, but the women explained that they were delivering newspapers and kept their headlights off so as not to wake people up. Half an hour after this incident, the police rammed another car and also opened fire on it. According to the officers, it also fit the description of Dorner's pickup truck, but as it turned out later, the car was of a completely different brand and even a different color, and a white man was driving it. He was also surprisingly not injured during the shooting. After that, people started making fun of the paranoia of the police and sold t-shirts online saying, "I'm not Christopher Dorner, please don't shoot me." But the fear of the police was justified. On February 7th at about 1:30 a.m., 2 police officers were on their way to guard one of the officers mentioned in Dorner's manifesto, but they were stopped by a civilian who reported seeing a man who looked like Dorner at a nearby gas station. The police officers went to the gas station and found a pickup truck that matched the description of Dorner's vehicle. They were driving right behind him, when suddenly, the pickup truck stopped, the driver's door opened, and Dorner fired several shots at the patrol car, injuring both police officers. About 25 minutes later, another patrol car in a different neighborhood in the city spotted a car that looked like it could be Dorner's pickup truck, but they were less fortunate than their colleagues. During the shootout, Christopher hit Officer Michael Crane in the head and also seriously wounded his partner. The taxi driver, who witnessed the shootout, rushed to the aid of the police. The best he could do in that situation was call an ambulance, which quickly arrived at the scene. The officer was taken to the hospital. He was taken into surgery and, unlike his partner, survived. Meanwhile, Dorner fled the scene. Despite the fact that the entire police force of the city was looking for him, he seemed to have vanished into thin air. Just 7 hours later, his pickup truck was found burned 120 kilometers outside of Los Angeles. The police assumed that he had fled into the mountains, but each step had to be taken with extreme caution, since Dorner could be waiting for them anywhere with his sniper rifle at the ready. 2 days later, the authorities announced that they intended to reopen the case that led to Dorner's dismissal. And on the 5th day after Christopher published his manifesto, a cash reward of $1 million was announced for any information that would lead to his capture. The authorities also used round-the-clock surveillance of the region from the air, but Dorner still managed to stay off the radar. He was quite lucky, because a sudden snowfall helped him hide by worsening the visibility. However, it caused problems not only for the police, but for Dorner too, since he clearly needed somewhere to hide from such weather. The police assumed that he could be hiding out in one of the hundreds of mountain cabins located in the area. However, when the officers went around checking each of them, they understood that knocking on the door could cost them their life. It was only 5 days after Dorner's burnt car was found that the police managed to get on his trail. On February 12th, the San Bernardino Police Department received a phone call from a certain Karen Reynolds. She said that Dorner broke into their cabin, tied her and her husband up, took their car, and drove off. Soon the car was found crashed, after which another person contacted the San Bernardino police. According to the man, he was parked on the side of the road and had his dog with him. Suddenly the car door opened and he saw Christopher. Dorner pointed his gun at the man and said, "I don't want to hurt you, but I need your car, so take your dog and get out." This time the police managed to get on Dorner's tail. One of the helicopters noticed the stolen pickup truck near a cabin. Alex Collins and Jeremiah McKay were the first ones to arrive at the scene. But Dorner gave them no chance by shooting them both. Soon, more police and special forces officers arrived at the scene. Dorner had no way out. He was surrounded. A 5-kilometer perimeter was set up around the cabin, but that didn't matter to him anymore. Initially, the police attempted to force Dorner out of the cabin by using tear gas and demanding his surrender over loudspeakers. When Christopher didn't respond, they used a demolition vehicle to knock down part of the hut, after which pyrotechnic tear gas canisters were fired into the hut. The police ordered him to surrender again, but he made a different choice. While the cabin was engulfed in flames, Christopher fired his last shot. Well, that's all for today, friends. Like the video, leave your comments about the video, and we'll see you next time.